His mother named him Jabez, saying, I gave birth to him in pain. We talked about that last week. So now Jabez called out to the God of Israel and said, if only you would bless me. If only you would bless me. If only you would bless me. That's the first line of Jabez's prayer. If only you would bless me. Now, jump with me, if you would, to Genesis chapter 32, and we're going to read something that I think we've discussed in here before. You may have heard it. You may know the story. We're going to discuss it a little bit today and partner it up with Jabez, and we're going to discuss that. Genesis 32, verse 24 is where we're going to start. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not defeat him, he struck Jacob's hip socket as they wrestled and dislocated his hip. Then he said to Jacob, let me go, for it is daybreak. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name? The man asked. Jacob, he replied. Your name will no longer be Jacob, he said, because it is Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he answered, why do you ask my name? And he blessed him there. Jacob then named the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, he said, yet my life has been spared. So we're going to talk about the blessing that Jacob asked for, the blessing that Jabez asked for, and we're going to just talk about the blessed life this morning. Let's pray. God, I ask that you would just continue to be with us each time we get together, that you would speak to us, and that your presence would just rest in this place. We thank you for all that you do in our lives. We thank you for who you are, and I just pray that you would use me as only you can today to share your word with your people. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, the blessed life. The thing about the blessed life is a lot of times you have to go through a breaking to get to the blessing. And what we do is when we get into the breaking seasons of our life is that we stop focusing on the blessing that's coming and we focus on the breaking that's there. And what we need to do is not let our former breaking stop our future blessing. Because the blessing is coming, but we have to get through the difficult part. It's easy to get lost in the hard times. We discussed the pain of Jabez last week. Excuse me. What do you do when the pain prohibits your promise? When you know that God has called you for something, he's got something for you, he's got something in store for you, he's ready to go, he's ready to give it to you, and you're in so much pain that you lose sight of the promise of God in your life, and that's all we focus on is the pain. When you lose sight of the goal, when you can't get past can't get past the past, what do you do then? When it's got you locked down. It's one thing when you're in pain, it's easy to shift your focus. It's another thing to be able to apply when you shift your focus and get out of the pain. If I'm in pain in something, like I can remember hurting myself as a kid, and I didn't want to think about that one part of my body that I hurt. Maybe when I hurt my foot, I cut my foot open, and I was running, and I didn't want to think about that, so I didn't look at it, because I thought if I didn't look at it, maybe it wouldn't hurt as bad. So I didn't focus on the pain and thought maybe it wouldn't hurt. Let me tell you what, it still hurt the same. I didn't look at it, it still hurt. Okay? There's all these things that we go through in life that we think if we don't focus on it, it won't hurt us. Jaden said the other day to me, he came in my room, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but he closed his eyes, and I said, why are you closing your eyes? He said, because if I can't see you, then you can't get me. And I said, okay, logic is completely wrong, but I get what you're trying to do. And we think if we're not looking at something, then it won't be able to hurt us. But instead, the pain just keeps creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. And that's how so many people find themselves in addiction. They don't want to deal with the pain, so they throw stuff at it. We don't want to deal with the hurt that we go through, so we throw stuff at it. And that only acts to hinder our blessed life, not bring us to our blessed life. And the plan of God is that we live a blessed life, that we don't struggle, we don't have these issues, that we live. Jesus said, I came to bring life and give it to you abundantly. He wants us to have such an abundant, blessed life. And all we have to do is take our eyes off of the problem and fix our eyes on Jesus. And if we can do that, we will follow the blessed life. But the blessed life does not come without struggles. The blessed life does not come without pain. The blessed life does not come without problems. You have to go through something in order to reach your blessed life. We let the circumstances of our life overrule the promises of God. There's been times that we need to stand tall in the storm. And I know that whatever happens, I will be victorious. Jesus told the story about the two men who built their house. One of them built their house on sand. It speaks of a loose foundation, that when you start building, you try to build these high things in your life. You tried to build yourself a nice job, build yourself a nice income, build yourself a nice family, build yourself a nice relationship, build yourself all these different things, but you've built it on what you could do. And Jesus said, when the storms of life come, all that falls apart. And your family starts to separate because now you're going through difficulties, and you thought, well, I never had this issue before because you built it on yourself. And now when the hard times come, it's easy to look at the other person and say, this is your fault. You can look at the children and say, this is your fault. Or you see somebody else look at the children and say it's your fault. And then you got to rely on the Jesus inside of you to not snap on those people and say, don't you ever say something like that to my child again, or it's going to be your fault. We have to understand that those things come with our blessing. We have to walk through these things. He continued and he said, but then there's another guy who built his house on the foundation, the stone foundation, which represents Jesus. And then when the storm came, that house was able to stand. Because the house that is built on Jesus is a house that has a strong foundation. And the storms can come. It's the same storm in both cases. Being from Florida, we've gone through a hurricane or two in my life. And see, the Indiana storms are different than the Florida storms. The Florida storms will rain. It'll rain for, as hard as it can, and lightning, and everything's cracking and crashing, and everything's going crazy, and it looks like the world is ending for 20 minutes. And then it's done. And then it gets 47 times hotter than it was before it rained. But here the storms are different. Here you can see it coming, like like you just know the whole climate changes, and it was like 78 degrees, and now all of a sudden it's like 58 degrees, and you're like, well, I don't know what's happening, because you can feel the storm rolling in. It shifts the atmosphere, and when we get to our that place in our life, we understand that the atmosphere starts to shift, but we don't focus on the storm that's coming in. We just kind of still try to walk through life. But in reality, if we're walking through life, if we're in the store when the storm hits, we still have to walk through that storm to get to our car. And your life is no different. When you're in a certain part of your life and you want to get to your next part, you're going to have to go through the storm to get there. But the good news is that when we have the foundation of Jesus, we can make it through any storms that life will throw at us. We can make it through any enemy that tries to come up against us. We can make it past any battle that we face, because the foundation of Jesus is greater than anything that we could build in our own. And that's what we need. That's what takes us to our blessed life. But as we all know, the blessing takes patience. And I'm not a patient person. It seems like the problems come right away, but sometimes the blessings we have to wait for. Lord, bless me with this. Okay, problem. I think we got our wires crossed somewhere, God. I think you misunderstood the transmission. Was I breaking up? I will resend it. Lord, bless me, problem. Wait a minute, bless me, problem. And I sometimes look at and I want to call out to God and say, God, where is the disconnect here? We are missing each other somewhere, because my prayer and what I'm receiving, they're not the same. But we have to be able to find the blessing in the battle, because the battle makes you stronger. The battle allows you to face bigger enemies in the future. The battle allows you to understand things and to build tactics and to have these kind of ideas that will help you get through, so you can go through your next battle and you can say, I remember what happened last time, and I know if I stay focused and I keep moving forward, it will work out this time. Seems like the problems are easy to see, but the blessings can be difficult to spot. Like I can understand that I have a flat tire. I don't understand the blessing in that. But sometimes it works out all good. We come up with terms like blessing in disguise, which basically means I didn't want this to happen, but now that it happened, I'm going to relabel it a blessing and just try to be positive about this thing and live through it. It was a blessing in disguise. It was actually, God knew what I needed. He knew I needed to be fired. You know, it was a blessing in disguise. I know that it seems difficult, but God knew I needed to be evicted, so he just threw it at me. It's just a blessing in disguise. God is good, you know, and he's good that way. He knows what we need. He knows when we need it, and he knows how to get it to us. Now, if we could just learn the patient part and understand to see when God shows up, we would be a lot better off. We'd be in good shape. For instance, when Chastity and I started dating, back when her dreams were fulfilled in me coming into her life, and she realized how lucky she was and that all her prayers had been answered. I am really trying to build myself up here for you guys, and none of you care. When we started dating, we were living kind of a crazy life. It was not a life that I would encourage anybody to get into. It's a tough spot to be. We were staying up all night. We were partying. We were doing things that did not make God happy. And in that season of our lives, we were living for us and only us. We didn't really care what other people said. We didn't listen at what other people said. My mom would say do this, and her parents would say do this, and we would just kind of ignore it and do what we wanted to do. We lived in places that we shouldn't have lived in. We hung out with people that we shouldn't have hung out with. In fact, one time we were hanging out. This was after we had kind of separated ourselves from it, but we were hanging out at the place that we had hung out when we met. And the circumstances, that happened in the course of the night, we were over there talking to them, and we left it because a couple of guys came over and they were having these issues, and then they went to go find somebody else. And so we were like, you know what, I'm just going to take myself out of this situation because I know how this goes. So we're just going to leave. And them two guys ended up going and leaving, and they committed a murder and got life in prison. So we were not in the best place in our lives. We were not doing things that would make God happy. We were not doing things that would make our parents happy. We were probably not doing things that made us happy, but we were out of our minds, so we didn't pay much attention to it. And then it all changed. Chastity wasn't feeling good, and I went to work one day, and she stayed home. We worked at the same place, and she stayed home, and I went to work, and she went to the doctor. And when I got home, and I assumed everything was okay because, again, it was not a place. We didn't live by ourselves, and there was a bunch of other people that were always there, and so we didn't really do much like cooking and stuff and taking, like we would eat out somewhere, or we would just not bring that to the house because it wasn't like a home. It was kind of just a place with a roof on it that you could stay inside. And so she's cooking, and I'm like, oh, she must have got some good news at the doctor's office if she's in here cooking, because she's going to have to feed all these other freeloaders that are going to come in here and want to eat too. And so I went in, and I said, I assumed everything was good, and I said, everything's okay then, huh? And she said, not really. And I said, not really? Why? And then the news was given to me in plain English: I'm pregnant. Now, that changed everything about our life, because the life that we was living is not conducive to raising a family. And there's people that do it. In fact, the lady that was the main renter of the house had a child, and she would treat the child in such a way that it made me uncomfortable. It made me want to go find some friends that I had from back in the day and invite them over to share with her, be whatever force necessary, that she should not treat her daughter that way. But I didn't. But it made me angry and uncomfortable. And so I've seen what it looks like for people. I've seen we got one time, I don't know why I'm telling you this. This is too much information for you. But we got picked up to go to court one time. Yeah, I had to go to court. Never mind. I had to go to court, and we were participating in activities upon our ride getting there. I'm trying to be delicate. And when we got there, we were participating in the activities, and she goes, all right, let's get in the car. We got to go to court. You're going to be late. And I'm saying, first of all, you're late. So it's not our fault if we are late because you were late. And I thought that the judge would care. He wouldn't care. And I said, but we're going to sit here and finish our activities, and then we'll get in the car because you have a baby in the car, like a 4-year-old. And she goes, it's all right. Get in the car. I do it with her in the car all the time. It'll be okay. Negative. Because I was completely void of any morality in my life, but I also knew that I'm not going to get into a car with a child who's innocent and bring them around things that they don't need to be, because I live with the issues in my life that when I was 10 years old, maybe even 8 to 9 years old, I started going and stealing my mother's cigarettes. And I would smoke them out. I would run around the house and smoke her cigarettes outside. And then I got my brother to do the same thing, Tim. And he's 2 years younger than me. And then I started going out and doing all these things in my life. And I started going into these places that would lead me down these paths of addiction and the lifestyle that I lived and all these just unnecessary places that I put myself. And I was, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old. And my mother would say, you got to bring your brother with you. And so I had to bring Tim. So I live every day of my life with the guilt that I think that it is my fault that Tim got to where he is, that Tim went through the struggles that he went through, that Tim went through the addictions that he went through, that Tim, was shot, that Tim did all this stuff. I take personal responsibility because I brought him into that. And it's tough to live with that. And it's only by God's goodness that I understand that it was not something that I could do, but it was something that it happened. I had to take him. I wasn't like trying to force this life on him. He was just around it. And because it's what I was doing and I was older, he wanted to do it because he thought it was cool. He thought it was what everybody else was doing. So he did the same thing. Life would be different if everything, changed. If I could go back and change some things, I would. But our life now would be forever different with the news that she was pregnant. And it was kind of a shock to both of our systems, and we were not ready for it. We didn't ask for it. We obviously didn't do much to prevent it, but we didn't ask for it. We weren't crying out to God saying, Lord, bless us with a child. It just happened. And yes, I know how it happened. Nothing would be the same from now on. And I remember that she was freaking out. She was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because she was like, she had just lived, I don't think she was still living with her aunt, but she was just living with her aunt. She was like, I gotta go do this, I gotta go do that, I gotta call my parents. And then she called her mom. I remember we went to a payphone because payphones, Cameron, were something that were out randomly placed around the neighborhood, and you could stop, pull up, put a quarter in them, and then you could make phone calls. You didn't have a cell phone. So we stopped at a payphone at a hotel, and she called her mom. I think it was a payphone at a hotel. I don't know. It was a payphone. And she called her mom, and she said, Mom. She laid it out for her. And her mom did not like the news. In fact, her mom got so upset, she said, I can't talk to you right now. She hung up the phone. Okay? And she was like, and she got all upset. She was like, I don't know what to do. And we went and told my mom, and my mom was like, yay! I was like, you're not supposed to be excited. But it was that changed our life. It was Isaiah that came in that made us realize that we need to be better. Better for ourselves, better for our family, better for our future. We needed to be the best that we can be. And so we looked at it as a blessing, as an issue, but really it was a true blessing in disguise. It's what saved us out of the lifestyle that we were living. And I can remember my father-in-law telling us one time a while after that, he said something, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was something to the effect of when she got off the phone, she was so upset, and she told him what Chastity had just said, and he said something to her like, you can't sit here and pray that whatever it takes, she would come back to God and then get mad at her for whatever it took. You prayed that whatever it takes, she would come back to God, and now she's doing it. She's coming back to God. And the reason it was a blessing in disguise wasn't that we were ready for it, because we wasn't. It wasn't that we were financially good to go, because we weren't. It's not that we had a great living situation, because we didn't. We did everything wrong and backwards, and it was still a blessing to us, because through that, Chastity said, I want to raise this child the way I was raised, and I didn't know nothing about that life because I wasn't raised that way. And she went back to church, and she found her relationship with Jesus again, and she did all that stuff, and I just wanted to be with her, and I wanted to be there for my child, because I didn't have a father, so I wanted to be better than that. And all this stuff that happened, it led her back to church, and then it led me to go to church, and then it let God speak to my heart and say, I want you to share my word with people. I want you to do ministry. I want you to do this stuff. And if it wasn't for that one thing in that one place where we never should have been, then God would have never reached me maybe. And I would never be able to do what I'm doing. I would never be able to tell somebody the good news of Jesus. Sometimes I think about my life and I think about where I would be had it not happened this way. Had she gone to college and done something, positive and not been in the places that I was at, because I was built for those places. I was in those places. I put myself in those places from a young age. I was cool with those places, but I didn't want. I think what if she had gone? I wasn't going to college, no doubt. I didn't finish high school. I got my high school diploma for all you youngsters when I was 30 years old. I said that like I'm 75 years old, all you youngsters. Like for all you young whippersnappers, I got my high school diploma when I was 30 years old, and it's on a white sheet of paper, and it says State of Florida Department of Education. It looks like I graduated from the penitentiary, but I got it. I got it because somebody asked me. They said, as a friend, I'm going to challenge you. Will you go get your high school diploma? And I said, sure. I just needed something to motivate me. So don't give up on your life. Don't give up on the good that you can do. Don't give up on the positive just because the storm that you're in right now. There's so much more. And it was a blessing for us because it brought us to a place where I never knew that I was missing. And so when I think about my life, I think, guaranteed I would not be doing good. Probably there's a fair bet I'd be in prison or would have come out of prison and maybe going back to prison. There's an also equally fair bet that I would have been killed. And I think sometimes that I've lived to be as old as I am, which is not that old, and I think, thank you, God, because I didn't plan on making it to 18 years old, 19 years old, and I'm 37, so you've already given me nearly 20 years past my own life expectancy, and I'm thankful for that because I went through the struggle, I went through the pain, I went through the battle to find the blessing. That was a great time for you to say, God is good or something, and y'all are just kind of chilling there. I want you to know that if you're going through a struggle, it's not the end of the road. You keep going. You keep moving. You keep fighting. Just put your head down and go. And God will lead you where you need to be. So all that stuff happened. The old us wouldn't have helped anyone. The old us wouldn't have cared about no one's problems. We had our own problems. The old us wouldn't have been looking for a blessing. We would have just been trying to do what we could do to survive. So when people have negative stuff to say about me, about her, about our ministry, about what we do, about our family, and yes, they have said it all. I don't care what they have to say. And I'm glad, I think to myself, I'm glad that you have lived a great life. And I'm glad that you are in a place where you can successfully look down on me. But I don't care. Don't you get too carried away on thinking that you're so much better than me. Because you might not have walked where I walked. And if you had walked where I walked and you had seen what I seen and you had been as broken as I was, then you might understand the blessing of a breakthrough. Because when I think about where I was, when I think about where I was headed, and when I think about when Jesus stepped in, I can't help but look at my life and thank God for everything that he's done, all the difficult times, all the problems, all the pain, because they all lead to a better road. They all lead to a better blessing. Yes, you have to go through some stuff. Thank you for loving me when no one else would love me. Thank you for saving me when no one else would save me. Most of all, thank you for the breaking season. That is what led me to my blessing season. The Bible talked about Jabez's pain before it ever mentioned his blessing. Because we go through dark seasons and we struggle through the darkness and try to make it into the light. And if you've been there for a while, keep holding on. I know it seems dark now, but the daybreak is coming. That's all Joseph wanted. The angel said, let me go because daybreak is coming. And Joseph said, I will not let you go because blessing comes at daybreak. The blessing is coming at daybreak. You have to go through your struggle to get to your blessing, but the blessing is coming at daybreak. Let me go. I will not let you go until you bless me. They say that it's darkest just right before the sun comes up. It's darker than it's ever been in your life. that means it's almost over. That means your blessing is right around the corner. It doesn't mean give up now. I've never been this deep in depression. I've never been to this dark place. I've never seen things so dim. I've never seen things so scary. I've never seen things so broken. Don't give up, because if it's the darkest it's ever been, it probably means that daybreak is right around the corner. And if you give up now, you will miss the blessing that's coming. Don't give up when God is leading you to the blessed life, but the blessed life goes through a broken road. The breakthrough is coming. Psalm 35 says it like this: his anger only lasts for a moment, but his favor is for a lifetime. And I think about my children. They could do something and I could get angry. Last night they kept cutting me off. I was trying to talk and they kept cutting me off. And I was like, will you stop? I had to turn on the preacher voice, as they call it. Will you stop? And Jaden goes, I just wanted to say something. I got upset because I was trying to tell them something, and Candace and Chassie, I was trying to tell them something that I thought was important, and they kept coming in with the dad, mom, dad, mom. Be quiet. You know when you got to talk through your teeth, it means shut it, be quiet. This is the face of somebody who's not playing around. And I was upset. But it only lasted for a second because they stopped. And that's the way I think, I know it's a silly kind of illustration, but us and our human emotions, we get to these places where we just have these times where we just want to explode. And I think about how sometimes we explode and we react before we think, and we say things before we think, and I'm guilty of that more than probably anybody else in here. But that is the road that we're on, and I think that God is like the same way. God's anger only lasts for a minute, but his favor lasts forever. It continues and says, weeping may stay overnight. Weeping may endure for the night. If you're more of a New King James person, weeping may endure for the night. But joy is coming in the morning. So don't stop at the weeping. The weeping is leading you to your joy. Don't stop because it looks hard. It's leading you to your blessing. According to the psalmist, your level of joy is connected to your level of weeping. If you've been weeping through and you never thought it would stop, get ready, because joy is on the way. The level of your blessing depends on the level of your battle. A heavyweight boxer cannot win a heavyweight title in a battle with a lightweight boxer. If he wants a bigger championship, he has to have a bigger battle. Sometimes we just have to wait. And it may take longer than expected, but just keep waiting. And it may cost more than you planned, but just keep waiting. And if you don't remember to just keep waiting, I'll put this in your mindset. Just sing it like Dory. Just keep waiting. Just keep waiting. Just keep waiting. What do? We wait. Don't get jealous at that right there. That was nice. That was a American Idol level singing right there. Well, all of you guys are hating. Just be patient and wait on God. The New King James Version of Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. And so many times people say, be still and know that I am God, and just think that means wait. Just wait. It doesn't mean wait. When you translate be still, it means wait with intention, wait with purpose. Don't just sit back and do nothing. Be active in your waiting. It doesn't mean to just sit back and say, okay, God, you're going to bless me when you bless me, but until then, I'm just going to sit here. It means to be actively engaged in your life, in the work of God, to be actively engaged while you wait. Don't just sit there. He's calling you to do more. The Christian Standard Bible says it a little differently, and I think a little more accurately. It says, stop your fighting and know that I am God. In other words, this battle is not yours. Let me handle it. We're so busy fighting his battles in our strength. We're fighting His battles and our strength. We're fighting enemies that we cannot defeat on our own. But we think if we can just swing harder and last longer and do what we need to do, then we will be victorious. But if we're doing it in our own strength, we will never come out victorious. It is the power of God in us that allows us to be victorious. It is the power of God in us that allows us to have the strength that we need to defeat an enemy that we cannot defeat. That is what we need in our life, the strength of God. We are fighting a battle, and we're wearing ourselves out trying to fight his battle in our strength. The battle for happiness. The battle for peace in your life. I just need some peace for 1 second. The battle for love. I mean, I wonder, I'm not going to ask you to do it because it would be, you might get insecure and stuff, but I wonder, how many people, if I asked you to raise your hand, how many people feel like they are not, have not, and can never feel truly loved? I bet you there's a lot of people that could say, that's me. And I'm the first one. The devil is a liar. You can be loved. You have been loved. You will be loved. If you don't see it in somebody here, understand that God is standing there looking at you, waiting for you to come to him so he can show you his love. Understanding that everything that you need is found in his presence. That the love that we need is not going to be perfected in a person, but the love that we need, the perfect love that we need, is going to be found in God alone. And when we find our love in God alone, then we will find our love in other people. We have to have a good relationship with God. The battle for love in your life, the battle for acceptance. People over and over again doing things, looking ridiculous, acting like fools just to be accepted, just to fit in. Now, I'm not going to say that Nick's wearing that hot hat because it looks cool when he's got a fresh haircut. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say the haircut looks good by itself. And if you would just style it and comb it, it would be awesome. I'm not going to say that you have to put this stinking hat on, all hipstery, like this. I'm going to put it on my sweaty head, too. It don't even fit. Look. What's up, bro? What's up, bro? Hey, Drake. What's up, man? See, we got our hat on the same way, bro. Yeah. I'm going to go get me some sweatpants that are real tight at the ankles and then big everywhere else like MC Hammer used to wear. What's up, man? Just need to be accepted, Just need to be accepted. What's up, Mackenzie? Tell your friends about me. I'm here now. Just got to be accepted. I woke you up now, didn't you? You ain't too tired no more, are you? Fresh haircut. This guy's putting on his goofy hat when it's 127,000 degrees outside. It's not that hot. I just came here from Florida. That's hot. I don't care if you just came here from the Amazon rainforest. Heat is heat. I've been there. The battles are hard. The enemy is strong. And I have learned that the key to a blessed life is not what you have. The blessed life isn't found in your things, in your bank account, it's not found in that. The blessed life is not found in what you have. It's not found in who you know. So you don't have to put your little goofy hat on and walk around like you're cooler than everybody else because you need to know the right people so that you can be blessed. Okay? That's not what it means. I have a picture on my phone that I keep just to look at every now and then to make myself think that's what it's like. Bill Gates is a very wealthy guy. And Bill Gates, it's a picture of Bill Gates that somebody took, and I bet you the people around him don't even know who he is standing there, but the person who took the picture did, and he's standing there with his hands in his pockets at this little burger shack place waiting in line. And it said Bill Gates is worth $100 billion, and he waits in line for his burger just like everybody else. What he has doesn't make him no more important. He understands that he is just a person. He is just a normal person, and that's what we have to get. We don't have to do all these things. Just knowing somebody isn't going to do the thing for you. It isn't going to be what you need it to be. You don't have to have all these connections. Oh, well, you don't know what it's like. I got to know people, because if I don't know people, I'm going to get picked on at school, and if I get picked on at school, it's going down. Just calm down. Be you. That's what I love so much about, not that my other kids don't have this in their own, special way, but Elijah, Jaden more so probably nowadays, but Jaden just don't care. He don't care if you like him. He don't care if you look at him. You're not going to embarrass him. Uncle Josh told him not too long ago, I don't remember where we were, but he sent us a video. He said, if you don't behave yourself in the store, I'm going to make you put that dress on and walk around the rest of the time we're in the store. Jaden goes, okay, bet. Put the dress on, started dancing in the aisle. He ain't scared. He ain't scared. You ain't going to embarrass Jaden. He does not care what people have to say. We shouldn't be so focused on other people that we lose track of who God is. We shouldn't be so focused on listen, I love you guys. I love all of you, but I shouldn't be so focused on what you think that I lose track of who God is to me and what God is saying to do and what God is saying to be. That's the most important thing to me. I guarantee you I'm going to mess up and fail at times, maybe more so than I would like. But I'm going to always try to be right with God. I'm going to always try to get back to that. I'm going to always try to make sure I'm in this Bible, that I'm studying, that I'm giving you guys the best that I can give you, because I think that is the way to a blessed life. And I believe the Bible teaches that the way to a blessed life is through Jesus, through the Bible. So, what is the key to a blessed life? How do we find the blessed life? I'll give you a few key factors to look for and we're done. Number one, the blessed life comes with the struggle for daybreak. The struggle for daybreak. In verse 24 of Genesis, it says, Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Jabez knew the struggle for daybreak. Jabez did. He knew the struggle because he was labeled. He knew the struggle because he was born in pain. He knew the struggle because of what he went through. But Jacob knew the struggle too. He had to experience everything. They had to overcome some serious issues to get to the blessed life, trying to make people see that there was more in them than just what they were. There was more in Jabez than just his pain. He didn't try to do it in his own power. He didn't try to convince people he was more. He just prayed. Jabez's story teaches us the power in prayer in the middle of problems. Prayer when we're lost in life. Prayer when we struggle with pain. Prayer when we just need a blessing. Jabez teaches us that. Nothing is too small or too big for God. We were somewhere at one time and somebody came and said, I want to sell my Corvette. I don't want to ask you to pray for that because that seems like it's too small on God's scale. I said, I'll pray for you to sell your Corvette because if it's important to you, then I'll pray for it. And then God will bring you what he needs. Now, you might not get what you want, but I'll pray that you sell it. You didn't say, I'll buy it for you right now for $1. You might not get what you want out of it, but I'll pray that you sell it. Prayer. There's nothing too big or too small for God. Sometimes I think we go to God and we think, well, I can't bring this to God. It's too small. I don't want to trouble God. He's like helping people kick a heroin addiction, and I'm over here worried about how I'm going to, move to another house. He's over here getting people out of like the sex trafficking industry and people that are in shipping crates going overseas somewhere, and I'm over here worried about how I'm going to pay for my car to get an oil change. God, I'm sorry. You go ahead and fix the important stuff. Come let me know when I can talk to you. That's not the way God works. God says you bring your needs to him. Every need, all needs, big needs, small needs, and everything in between. That is what God does. But for Jacob, that's another story. For Jacob, the struggle is explained. Jacob was left alone. Sometimes your biggest battles come when you're left alone. Sometimes your biggest battles come when there's nobody there to help you. And you're calling people and they're not answering. And you're driving by people's house to see if they're there because you'll just pop in and you normally wouldn't do that, but you really need somebody right now. And you drive past and you're like, they ain't home. I'm not going to stop by. And you're alone, and then the biggest battle that you face comes. And you're by yourself. And they both had to endure the struggle for daybreak. Have you ever had to fight all night long to get what you needed? Have you ever had to fight just to be able to overcome something that you've struggled with for such a long time? Have you ever had to fight? I don't mean like just setting a couple prayers up. I don't mean ask some people to help keep you accountable. I mean, have you had to fight? Have you had to roll your sleeves up with the enemy and say, you can come try me if you want to, but I am not going to back down? Have you ever had to fight the devil that is coming against you and trying to put all this stuff on you and say, you need this, you need that, follow this person, go over here, do this, do that, and you say, I'm not going to listen to you, I am ready for the fight? Have you ever had to fight in the middle of your issues and you don't know where the attacks are coming from, but you're ready at all points? I'm not going to be defeated by you. And we fight. I don't know how long the fight will last, but I will fight him. And I don't know how strong the enemy is, but I will fight. And I don't know exactly how it will end, but I will fight. And it's when your fight or flight kicks in. Are you the person who runs away, or are you the person who will stand up and fight? Both of them are geared to save your life. Both of those reactions are not, it's not like if you run away, you're a coward. I mean, people might say that, but it's the instinct inside of you is your personal method to save your own self. And so they are both geared to help you be safe. For me, I'm a fight person. I don't shy away from it. You can bring it if you want to. So when the enemy wants to come at me and he wants to say, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, I try to be very serious about my fight. Okay, you take it from me, and I'm going to go and I'm going to get God, and I'm going to tell him what you're doing. I'm snitching. I'm snitching on you. I am telling my daddy. I am telling on you. I wish you would come and try to take something from me, devil, because I'm going to go tell my dad, and he's going to whoop you. And my dad is stronger than your dad. You get it? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go snitch. I'm telling. David stood and fought, not just with Goliath. Everybody knows Goliath. And it's like, oh, David, here he goes. David with the slingshot, throwing his rocks. Woo, good for David. I've heard that story 1,000 times in church. No, but David fought more, though. David fought with his brothers. He fought with his family. He fought with his purpose. He fought with himself. He fought with God. David fought with Saul. He fought for his position. Saul tried to kill him multiple times, chased him all over the place, and to the point where David was standing right there over Saul, and David's assistant said, let me hit him with my spear. Like, I could just see it in my mind. Let me hit him with this spear. And then he says, because he's a gangster, I won't have to do it twice. Let me get him one good time. And David said, no, we can't do that. And David cut the end of his robe off, and then they left. And then when Saul come out of the cave and David hollered, he said, hey, Saul, I just want you to know that I could have killed you. My dude really wanted to hurt you, but I didn't, and I could have, and here's the proof. And David felt so guilty just for cutting the robe off of Saul because he was God's anointed king at the time. And so David felt guilty, but David fought. He fought through everything he needed to fight through. Sometimes the thing that stands in front of your daybreak moment is right in front of you, and you don't even see it because you're so busy looking at everything else. The enemy that you're facing is dead in front of you, but we don't look at it. Peter stood and fought. Yeah, Peter messed up. He did all kinds of bad stuff. Peter was not he's not the shining example of what it means to follow Jesus. He ran off. He denied him. He went back on the boat, back to his comfort zone, and did all this. Like he acted different when certain people around. Peter had his issues. But when they came to get Jesus, Peter said, you ain't about to take Jesus from me. Pulled his sword out and cut the guard's ear off. And Jesus said, no, Peter. No. We're not doing that. Put your sword away. Whoever lives by the sword dies by the sword. Jesus picked the man's ear up, put it back on his head. Now, that dude would have needed to wear a hat all the time. But Jesus fixed him. But Peter fought. Jesus fought. He fought his whole life. He went to his hometown to help the people that he knew to be the Jesus that they needed. He went back to his hometown, to the people he was raised with, and they said, we don't want you. Isn't this just Jesus? We don't want you. He fought the religious leaders who should have been on his side. And they was like, no, we don't want you either. Jesus fought his whole life. So you have to understand to struggle. It's a struggle for daybreak. The second thing you got to do is share the desire. Share the desire. Jabez said that you would bless me. That you would bless me. Oh, God, that you would bless me. Just called out to God, will you bless me? Joseph said, I will not let go until you bless me. One of them cried out in prayer. One of them cried out in desperation. Those might both be the same thing, because you have to get to the place where you are so desperate in your life that the only thing you can do is rely on the power and the presence of God to get you through it. I will not let go until you bless me. I will not let go until my children are saved. I will not let go until my bills are paid. I don't need nothing extra. Just don't let me struggle. I will not let go until everything that I need taken care of is taken care of. I will not let go until you bless me. They both wanted the same thing, a blessing. So many times people think that to share the desire just means to agree together, right? If you've been in church for any length of time, you've probably heard somebody say, I'm going to agree with you in prayer. Or will you agree with me in prayer? And that's great. There's nothing, I agree with people in prayer all the time. You want to pray? I'm going to pray with you. I'm praying for people's children. I'm praying for people's new jobs. I'm praying for all of it. I'm praying for whatever you want to pray. You come, we'll pray together, and then I'll pray for you. I'll agree with you in prayer. We'll do this thing. But people think that that's all you have to do is just agree together. I will agree together with you for your job. I will agree together, and we will pray, and I will agree together that you will have a baby. I will agree together with you that you find the perfect opportunity for your life. And that may be part of it, but that's not always the biblical definition of desire. That is more of like your prosperity thing. Like, it just if you just believe it, God will give it to you. Like, you could just go to the car dealership and say, like, hey, I'm gonna go after church, and I'm just gonna go out over to like the I don't know, something easy on gas. I'm gonna go to the Honda dealership. I'm gonna pray to God, this Civic is mine. This is my Civic. No, matter of fact, it's biblical. This Accord is mine, because we're going to be in one accord on this thing. This Accord is mine. This Accord is mine, God. And then all of a sudden, God's just going to show up like the Publisher's Clearinghouse with a big red bow on it, and it's going to pull in the driveway and go, here you go. Not true. It's not the way it works. It takes more than just believing something to receive something. And people will argue with you. I've gotten to a lot of arguments with professional church folks that think that is exactly what the Bible teaches. In fact, they say Psalm 37:4 says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you your heart's desires. It's true, it does say that. So I can ask God for anything I want, and he'll give it to you. And I've asked him, people come and say, I've asked God for the winning lottery ticket. How's that working? You're believing, right? I've asked God for the best spouse possible. I've asked God for the perfect ministry. Good for you. But that's not what it means. And that's all great. And I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't do it, because me and Chastity will sit down and we'll talk. We'll see a commercial or drive past a billboard and be like, the Mega Millions Lotto is $575 trillion gajillion dollars. And we're like, maybe we should throw $1 at it. You know what I mean? What's the worst that could happen? If $1 gets us 500 quadrillion bajillion dollars, what's the worst that could happen? And then, like, I always know if which we don't normally. I'm not advocating to go sell all your life savings and play the lottery. But what I am saying is that every now and then somebody will throw $1 at the lottery, and then Chastity will go, like, most of the time we'll just look at it and we don't go, like, I ain't even paying no attention to that. Can't win if you don't play. But then we'll be like, but I would be so good with that money. I would be a good rich person. I would be generous. I would give it away. We've had conversations. We've had our whole lives planned out for our 500 bajillion gajillion dollars, and we ain't got the first one yet. But we would be good, generous, rich people. I'll buy y'all cars. We're giving everybody something. I'm giving everybody something. Yeah, Oprah. That's right. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car. 500 bajillion gajillion dollars. I got it all to spare. It's all good. But that's not the way it works. And I only realize that to be ignorant in my thoughts. The Bible isn't teaching that if we ask him something, he's going to give it to us. God is not our genie. He is not there for us just to rub his lamp and say, come on out here and give it to me. Look. Nothing. Try it again. Faster. Nothing. No, nothing. You try it. Nope. I'm not even going to ask you. You have to have your magic hat on first. He's not our genie. When the Bible says that if we delight ourselves in the Lord, he'll give us the desires of our heart, that's when your desires of your heart line up with his desires in his heart for your life. That doesn't just mean go and ask him for something, he's going to throw it at you. It means make your heart's desire line up with his heart's desire. And then he will give you the desires of your heart, because then your life will line up with his plan for your life. And when you do that, of course you're going to have it, because you're walking in his perfect plan. Now, his perfect plan might be like parallel to your perfect plan, but you might think it looks a little different. But it's still the same plan. When we line ourselves up to God, that's when he gives us the desires of our heart. He's seen that we're willing to go through the struggles. He's seen that we're willing to follow his will and put ours down. When will we stop trying to force our will on God and claim it's biblical? When will we stop trying to force our will on God and claim it's really his will? God, this is what I want. And I'm telling you it's what I want. But I'm sure it's what you want too. No, you're telling God what you want. What is the desires of your heart? What are the desires of his heart? Do they match up? Just because it's your will, it doesn't mean it's his will. And so many times, that's why anytime we've ever made a move, anytime we've ever done anything in ministry, when we left the church of God and went to the assembly of God, anytime we've done anything in ministry, we have a season of making sure that that is lining up with God's will. Like, this is what I want to do, but it's not necessarily what he wants to do. And so when we were going to leave Texas, we went to leave Texas, and we didn't really know where we were going to go, and so we were looking at different places. And I said, let's just go. We'll go back to Fort Myers. We'll go back to Lehigh, Florida. We'll go back there. And to the point where I was like, yeah, it's what we want to do. We'll just go back. Oh, that's it. And so we started looking around, and somebody even offered us the position down there. And then all of a sudden, I was like, see, pack your bags. We're ready to go. To the same church that I was saved in. They was like, you want to come be the youth pastor? I'm like, sure. Why not? I told her, pack the bags. We're going. You're going to be reunited with Candace. Reunited. And it feels so good. Well, you were reunited. It just took a little while in a different location. But it didn't work out because that wasn't God's plan. Instead, somebody else called us and invited us to come to Fort Wayne to be their youth pastor. And even told me like this: if you say that it's not true, then you're calling God a liar. I'm like, well, I don't know that that's necessarily accurate. But when we prayed and we got together, we understood that that was exactly where we needed to be, was not down there, was here. Because we have to take time. We didn't want to force our will on God and pretend it was his. I have had people tell me what God's will is for my life, and they don't have the right to do that, and they can't change the desire for me. Then why do we think we can do the same thing to God and we can tell God what his will is? It is your will, God. Wrong. Share the desire with God. The last thing you have to do is stand in determination. After his battle, God told him, the angel told him, which it says a man in the Bible, depending on what translation you read. Sometimes it'll capitalize M for man, and it'll show you that it's a proper noun, which is an Old Testament appearance of Jesus. It's a theophany. It's a whole big theological thing. I'm not going to get into all that with you, but just know it's a real thing. And sometimes it doesn't. Certain, like ESV does not capitalize pronouns of God's name, and so different things like that. But if it were just a man, would he be able to just touch his hip and knock it out of socket? If it were just a man, would he tell him what he tells him right here and says, your name will now be Israel because you have struggled with God and with men. God and with men. God and with men, and you have prevailed. It doesn't mean that if you fight God and people long enough, he'll give you your way. It means if you stand in determination, God will create in you what he sees, not what you see. God will replace what's broken with what's better. He did it for both of them. Jabez was named Pain, and he became blessed. Jacob also named after the events of his birth. Jacob means heel grabber, a supplanter, because when Jacob came out, he grabbed the heel of his brother. And so Jacob literally means he was named after what happened on his birth. The name supplanter means replacement, is what it means. He was designated as a troublemaker, and he even lived up to it for a while. He tricked Esau out of his birthright. He tricked his father into the blessing that was meant for Esau as the older son. He tricked them out of everything, and his mother Rachel helped him do it. They were both tricksters, and then Uncle Laban was a trickster. They were all these kinds of deceitful people, and it ran through the family, generation and generation and generation. And then now you got Jacob, the same person who was doing all this negativity, the same person who was doing all this nonsense, wrestling with God and prevailing. It's not that God couldn't win. It's that God wanted to test Jacob to see how far will you let this fight go? Are you going to give up, or are you going to stand and fight? That's what he wanted to know. But he changed his name to Israel. Israel means God prevails. But God said, you have prevailed. Because again, when you share the same heart that God has, when God prevails, you prevail. So I'm not going to name you after me. I'm not going to name you by your circumstances. I'm going to name you by mine. Because now your circumstances line up with mine. So I'm going to name you God prevails, because you've struggled with people and you've struggled with God and you've come out on top. So your name's going to be Israel, because he was determined to change his past, his problems, his priorities. He was determined to change everything. He was ready for the battle. And after all he'd been through, God built him up for that. Younger Jacob might have ran. He might not have wanted to fight. Younger Jacob might have hid. Younger Jacob might have gave up completely and said, you win. But do you know when God struggles with you, when God wrestles with you, it's not to make you give up, because we can't win that fight. It's not to make you give up. It's to make you get stronger and understand that you need him. He's not trying to break your spirits. He's trying to build your spirits. He wants to see, are you going to give up? I'm going to throw some health issues at Patsy. See if she gives up. That don't work. I'm going to throw some other issues at her. See if she gives up. But as best I can see, she's still fighting. You know, Ashley, throw some health issues at Dustin. But he's here because he didn't give up. I'm going to throw some issues at Josh. I'm going to throw some issues at Jamie. Are you going to just let the issues knock you down, or are you going to stand up and fight? I will not let go until you bless me. I will not. If you run from the struggle, you run from the strength. I'm going to close with this. I might have told you this story before, but I'm going to finish with it because it fits. A man went to heaven, and upon his entry into heaven, he was greeted by Peter, as they say, and Peter walked him around, showing him the layout of the place, giving him the tour. This over here, he said, what's that big building over there? He said, that's a big warehouse building. You know, it's not really nothing that you need to worry about. He said, I want to see in it. I want to see everything that this place has to offer. I want to go in there and look at it. So he opened the door, and it was stacked top to bottom, as far as you could see, with racks and racks and racks and racks and racks. And on each rack was letters that correlated with a name, and each letter had somebody's name on the box, and they were put in these boxes, and they were wrapped with a red ribbon, and it was all in there. He said, these are boxes for everybody. He said, do I have one? And Peter said, yeah, of course you have one. They're for everybody. And he said, well, I want to go look at mine. And Peter tried to tell him not to do that. It's not a good idea. I wouldn't do that if I were you. No, I want to go. I want to see it. So he ran over to find his letter, and he looked around, and he found his name finally, and he got the box down, and he put it on the floor, and he ripped the red ribbon off, and he flipped the lid off, and then all of a sudden he got upset. And Peter said, I told you not to do that. And he said, what is this? And he said, those are all the blessings that God had for you that you didn't get because you didn't look for them. You didn't ask for them. You didn't want them. Your will for your life didn't line up with his. So this whole place is full of what God couldn't give people because they couldn't want it. They couldn't line up with his plan. They couldn't line up with his will. This whole place is full of lost blessings because people didn't line up with God. And he said, everyone gets some blessings, but some get every blessing. And we are the people that have to make the choice. Do we want to be the some people who get every blessing? Or do we want to be every person who gets some blessing? The blessed life leads through Jesus. It leads through the cross. It leads through the tomb. It leads through the resurrected Savior. That's the blessed life. Does it come without struggles? No. In fact, the struggles might be bigger. Why are the struggles bigger when you serve God? Somebody asked me, they said, I thought if I gave my life to God, everything would be easier. My struggles would be smaller. Why are my struggles bigger when I'm with God? Your struggle is bigger because your strength is bigger. God knows what you can hold on to because now you're fighting with him. And your struggle before, you could not win because it was in your own strength. Your struggle now, you can win because your struggle is with his strength. So I want to live the blessed life. I want to say the words of Jabez and say, oh, Lord, that you would bless me. I want to have the ability to struggle with God and with men, and I have. And normally I would sit here and say, I don't want to struggle at all. But I've seen the other side of the struggle, and I know what comes with it. So I'm not afraid of the struggle no more. The struggle for our daybreak. The blessing comes at daybreak. Now, are you going to let go, or are you going to keep fighting until daybreak? That's the question. That's the blessed life. Let's pray. Father, we ask that you would just continue to speak to our hearts. Lord, that everything that happens, everything that we do, everything that we are is because of you. That every gift, every good thing that we have comes from you. Every blessing that we have flows from you. So God, I pray that as we go through this life, as we go through today and the rest of our week, as we go through the struggles that come up and the battles that we face, I pray that you would let us understand that we're not fighting them alone, we're fighting them in your strength. We're not battling for our family by ourselves, we're battling for our family with your leadership. We're not battling for our future by ourselves, we're battling with you.